Hello, chess fans. Today we're going to look at a game of Anand and Korchnoi. It's a short but very illustrative game, and interesting enough, I actually could not find a single game that Korchnoi won. Korchnoi, of course, one of the best players that did not become world champion of all time, I think. And well, unfortunately, due to the age difference, he only played Anand at the end of his career, so not at his best strength ever. But it was an interesting fact to see that Korchnoi was able to get some draws, but never to win against Anand. Okay, so as I mentioned, this will be a short game, but it will be very illustrative nonetheless. The first interesting part actually starts here with the decision of Korchnoi to play h6. And in the post-mortem, he actually said, if I wanted to play safe, I would have castled here. And he actually did castle in the previous game against Anand in this position, and he did get that into a draw, but he was clearly trying to get a bit more out of it with the move h6. After bishop takes, knight takes f6 was reasonable new at the time. Queen takes f was more common, but it's fine. Queen to d2, and now b6 to develop the annoying light squared bishop in the French, of course. Anand in this game really crushed the French, like almost like it was 39. It was absolutely horrible to see. Bishop to b7, and now knight to e5, castles, and bishop to d3. Now here, the move c5 that is played actually makes sense. You can clearly not play queen takes d4 because you get check and oops, there goes our queen. You also don't want to play bishop takes c2 because we get rook to g1, attacking the bishop, and we have a very beautiful file towards the king, and we have all our pieces pointed at the king as well. We have a rook at g1, we have the queen threatening to capture on h6 instantly, we have the bishop pointing in that direction, and we have a very far advanced central knight on e5, so not something you want to see as black. With c5, you are trying to open up the c file. You are now attacking the d4 pawn, and on the c file you want to create your own play. Very normal idea, very common idea if you have castles on opposite sides of the board. Okay, so white here takes on c5, and after queen c7, rook h to e1. Makes total sense. Perhaps a future rook lift is coming. And if nothing else, we now put the rook on the half open file. We're defending the knight on e5 as well, so very useful move. And now, interesting enough, we do get bishop takes g2, which is a bit peculiar. I understand that he doesn't want to play queen takes g5, because if black plays queen takes g5, we get f3, and the follow-up of g4 and g5 is very logical and very challenging to stop for black. So perhaps with that in mind, he did play bishop takes g2. But the problem is we now get rook to e2, and the next moves can be f3 followed by rook g1 or rook g1 perhaps instantly, which is very nice for us. Now, if now we have queen takes c5, that again would be a mistake because we now get rook to g1, and after rook to g1, it's very clear we threaten the bishop, and we have the g file. Our queen points at h6, so we really don't want to move. And if we try to defend it with queen to d5, white can now say, okay, c4, just harassing the queen, and you know, if black tries to pin our pawn and plays rook to c8, we just move out of the pin and renew the threat. Now queen needs to move, so b7 and f3. Yeah, this is now a very big problem because the bishop is attacked 3 times, and you really need to move off the g file. And if you move the g file, well, all h will break loose, because if you play bishop to h3, we get the move from earlier. Queen takes h6, and the threats are just too much. We are threatening checkmate. Again, you have everything pointed at the king's side. We threaten to take the knight on f6. So it's absolutely horrible, not pleasant for black. And if black says, okay, well, let me then take the pawn on f3 instead. Okay, but then we get rook to f2. And again, the threats are now horrible. We are threatening to win the bishop on f3. If the bishop moves, we will be able to take on f6, win the knight. We threaten to take the pawn on h6 still. And we have an additional rook pointed at the king side, if nothing else. So absolutely horrible. If the black knight moves back, then we just win the bishop. And again, our threats renew. So not pleasant, not doable at all. So that is why instead of that line, we don't play queen takes c5, but we play king to h8. This makes sense because it steps out of the g file, and Korchnoi knows that there will be heavy traffic coming in that direction. Now, rook to g1 is played, which is a good move. Queen f4 is also an option. I just wanted to show it because we have now the very interesting threat of knight to g6 check, picking up the black queen. And if black defends it with, say, rook to c8, then we can play f3, again, attacking the bishop on g2. And after the bishop moves, we have multiple options. We can continue our kingside attack, which we will anyway, or we can play the very subtle c6 and still continue with our plan on the king side. Did not happen, and the move that was played was clearly good enough. So rook to g1, attacking the bishop, is clearly a strong move, and it makes total sense. It follows the principle of continuing the attack on the king side, which is just very good. Bishop to d5, and now we have queen to f4 at this moment. After queen takes c5, rook to e3, and it was actually in this position that Korchnoi resigned. So why did he resign? Well, let's continue a few moves and find out. Let's say we just continue with our own plan as black, and we play rook to c8, doubling on the c file. Then we continue with our plan as white. We move our rook to g3, and again our threat is very clear. We threaten to win on g7. So what's black going to do against it? Well, if he says, well, let me defend that with the rook, oops, boom, checkmate. Yeah, so we have the bishop and the knight. So it's half a smothered mate, not really fair a smothered mate, but it is nice to see. So that is clear that the rook cannot move to g8 because it will be game over. So what else do we have? Okay, let's try g6. Oops, there goes our knight. Check. And not only there goes our knight, but if you continue, we just have a beautiful checkmate as well, because bishop takes with check, and after takes we have check, king to h8, and checkmate. So not an option to play the pawn one field up. So what about g5 then? Well, once again, there goes your knight, and now after king to g8, we still have checkmate. Rook takes, pawn takes, and checkmate. So no, not an option. What other moves do we have? We cannot move our pawn, clearly. Taking with the queen on c2 doesn't do anything but lose our queen, and then we have the same problem again. So it looks like that knight to h5 might actually solve the problem. It does indeed defend the g7 square. It attacks the queen on f4 and the rook, so we have a fork against white. But in this position, also white wins, and now by a beautiful mating combination. I actually want to give you the chance to find it, so feel free to pause the video. I will give the solution in 3, 2, 1. So checkmate sequence starts here with a beautiful move, queen takes h6, check. Now after takes, we also sacrifice a rook by rook to g8, check. And after rook takes g8, we have knight takes f7, checkmate. So we sacrifice a queen and rook beautifully to create a checkmate with the 3 pieces that we have left. I thought it was very nice in this sideline. Okay, so it's clear that we have no good answers there. So what else can we try after we are in this position? we know we cannot move the rook to c8. We need to stop the mating threat that white is going to create. Another problem is there really is not much good that we can do. And try would be to just move now knight to h5, attacking the queen and also defending against the rook to g3, at least it looks like it. But then the problem is we just play our queen to g4. And what do you want to do? Do you want to defend the knight? You cannot move it because it's checkmate. So if you defend with g6, you just have boom, check. And after you capture, because you have to, otherwise it's also over, we take with the queen on g6, threatening checkmate on h7, and black needs to keep the knight on h5, because if it moves, we deliver checkmate on g7. So there is no proper way to defend against all these threats. So it's game over in this, or actually far before this, but Korchnoi saw these lines, he saw that he had no chance, so he tipped his king in, let's see, where were we? He tipped his king in this position. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this this analysis. Surely enjoyed going through it and making the sidelines. Put in the comments what game you want to see next, and I will be sure to give it a think and upload it in any next videos. For now, thank you for watching, have great games, and see you later. Bye bye.